Hi YouTube. Today we're going to be looking at another Colt 1911, and the reason I'm going to show you this Colt 1911 is a little bit of a unique gun. I've had a couple questions from a couple people about the differences in the newer and the older Colts, and I would consider this one somewhat of a newer one. I guess now you could say this thing's probably, give or take, about 10 years old, but it's still sort of more of a modern Colt 1911. But before we get going any further, I'm going to show you that there's nothing in it and it's clear and everybody's safe and nobody can get shot through the camera. So this is a Colt government model Series 70 1911. This is what they call the Wiley Clapp edition. Now, a little bit of history about Wiley Clapp. I don't know a whole lot about him, but he's a gun author, and I guess his opinion is very respected amongst the gun community. He was in the Marines. He was a former law enforcement officer, and he writes a lot about guns. And I know that Colt produced a lot of guns with his name on it, with his standing there, you know, like kind of overseeing things, telling him what he wants. And I believe Ruger did a couple things with their like revolver line. They did a couple Wiley Clapp edition guns, but usually how you can tell right away is they have this little handprint on them. Almost every Wiley Clapp gun does. So when you put your hand on them, your fingers line up with the grip. Now that doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but that's just kind of like the signature thing with the Wiley Clapp gun. So what we have here, we have a Series 70 1911. This is just a government model, and this one has a couple features that modernizes it. So we'll start off with, it has checkering on the front strap, and that happens to line up with the Wiley Clapp grips right here. His signature little finger groove things. This thing has a commander hammer, and this is an old style Colt commander hammer that's on this thing. And it's got extended beaver tail on it with a memory hump on it. It's got Novak style sights on it, target sights. And this one here, let's see if I can get it to show up on camera, has a brass bead front sight, which I don't care too much for. My eyes don't pick up the brass or gold beads very well, but some people, that's their favorite kind of sight, and that is a personal preference thing, but my particular eyes don't pick it up very well. It's got the long trigger on it, and this particular gun has no markings on the one side of the slide. It's just blank. It's got a national match barrel in it. So you see where it says Colt 45 Auto National Match. And this gun is slick. I mean, it does work really, really well. It's pretty smooth. I haven't messed with it in a long time, but it does have a smooth action on it. It's your typical government model, so it just has the regular guide rod length in it. And it's got the lowered ejection port, lowered and flared ejection port on it. But this is like, I don't know, somewhat of a modified 1911, I guess, from the factory. It doesn't have AMI stuff on it or anything like that, but it's a really, really good shooting gun, like most Colts are. The trigger on it, like I've mentioned this a million times, and I'm going to continue to hit this home. They don't make a bad 1911 trigger. They don't. But this thing is pretty good. I mean, it's not the best one I've ever seen, but it's a pretty good trigger in it. Now, this is a Series 70. Let me show you the roll marks on it. This is Colt Series 70 government model right on the side. And basically the only difference in this and a regular government model is the front checkering, the extended beaver tail, and the commander hammer. And it does have a little bit better sights on it. So it's not anything a whole lot special about it. I do like the front checkering on it. I like that on any 1911. It helps out a lot with the recoil on them. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to compare a couple of these in an upcoming video and show you the differences in the old Colts and the new Colts. Now what I'm going to try and do right now, this is the blued gun, and there's nothing wrong with this gun. It is cool looking. I like it a lot. But a lot of people don't realize the differences in this old finish and the new finish. So I'm going to zoom in here as much as I can see, and you can see the machine lines and this bluing on this slide, you can see the machine lines. And the old Series 70s, like in the early 70s, you know, the 60s and the early 70s, it was different. It's kind of like when they did the Python bluing and all that. It just looked like a mirror, and it was nothing like this. Now, there's nothing wrong with this, but if you sit this next to an old, like Gold Cup or something like that, it's not even going to be close with the looks. Now, if you're not too concerned with looks or anything like that, if you just want function, like, this is the way to go. Now, the price on these things, I tried to find one on Gunbroker before I did this video, and they don't even have one for sale on there. But these guns were, you know, just average, maybe a little bit above average, what you would pay for a Colt at the time that they came out. You know, they probably were a little bit more, but now they seem to be a little bit ridiculously priced, and it would be way more than I would ever pay for one at the time. In my opinion, this is a, you know, $1,000 to $1,200 gun, but I don't think you can touch one for that right now because of the availability, and they just stopped making them. I cannot remember for the life of me when they made this gun. I think it was around, I don't know, the mid-2000s, like 2010, 2011, something like that, if I'm not mistaken, you know, when they started doing all their 100 year stuff and the re-release of the World War I thing. I think that's about the time era these things came out, and you can't get them anymore. You can get a couple of the Colt Wiley Claps now, like the Commanders and all that, and but they're a little bit pricey. I saw 2 Wiley Claps on Gunbroker, and neither one of them were this government model. They were Commander style. They wanted an arm and a leg for them, but I was going to give you kind of a price comparison on them. Show you some of the roll marks. This thing's all matte on the side. It's got your normal Colt roll marks on the side, and then it's got the shiny slide on it. And I do like that it's blank on one side and very, very incognito, if you will. Just not a whole lot of stamping on it and everything. But I guess function-wise, this thing does work pretty well. I just do not think the quality is there from what the old Colts are. I think Colt has sort of, pretty much like everybody, it's not just Colt, it's everybody. They've let their quality control go down over the years, and you don't get what you got in the 70s and the 60s and stuff with some of these older guns. And I will show some differences. Now, this is a Series 70, this is a re-release. So, as you can see, it says Series 70, so it's not going to have the collet bushing in it. And what I'm going to do here in the next few days, I'm going to get my old Gold Cup. I have a video on. I have a Series 70 Gold Cup National Match. It was made in like the mid-70s. And I'm going to break this one down next to it. And we'll break down, I'll get a couple Colts out that are all Series 70s, and I'll break them down. I'll show you what the differences in these barrel bushings are, and show you what made the Series 70. That was what actually made a Series 70 a Series 70. Now, that's all I'll buy when I buy the Colts is the Series 70, because they don't have that firing pin block, and it really does affect how the trigger works. They just, the Series 80s ones, they feel a little gritty because there's more moving parts inside them to work, you know, back and forth, and you feel the friction on them. And usually when you do trigger jobs and stuff like that, it does affect how a gunsmith works on them, and most of them hate them. And I'm one of those people, I'm not real fond of having a bunch of extra parts inside, but that was Colt caving in to, like, governments, making them more safe, and these guns are safe anyway. They have more safety features on them than any of the modern things. I mean, when it's cocked, it will not go off here. You have to have the grip safety gauge, and you have a thumb safety. So I mean, there's no way this gun's going off. So I don't know why you have to add all that extra stuff on them anyway. But anyway, folks, I just want to give you a look at a Colt Wiley Clapp. This thing comes, it's crazy. It comes in one of those Colt custom shop blue boxes with all the frills on it and everything, and it's basically just a Colt 1911 with some fancy grips and front checkering on it. They do make a limited edition or a classic version somebody sent me, and it's almost the same gun. They sent me a link to a classic version, was asking my opinion on it, and I told them I'd make this video like this. It's almost the same exact gun, except for this has these Wiley Clapp grips on it. But anyway, folks, give me your opinion on what you think of these more modern Colts. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. I do love them. I wouldn't own this thing if I didn't love them. But I do like the older ones. I tend to lean more towards older ones. I think the quality is just a little bit better on the older Colts. But let me know what you think about my Wiley Clapp Series 70 Colt 1911. And if you have any questions on it, feel free to ask. And you folks have a great day.